Close Basketball Hall of Famer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar reacts to NBA Commissioner Adam Silver's comments on athlete protests during the national anthem and shares what players should do in response. Time. Sports. If the freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led, like sheep to the slaughter. Those are the words of America's first president, who understood the fact that we are all different and that we should be allowed to express those differences in a free society. He made that statement over 220 years ago, and it is still relevant today, even more so. Kneeling in protest is not disrespectful. It's the American way. The recent peaceful protests by players of the NFL, a majority of whom are young black men, is not about the flag or the national anthem, and anyone who has looked at this issue objectively knows that it never was. People can agree to disagree on this issue, but taking a knee is not disrespectful to the flag or the national anthem. In fact, many religious people take to their knees to pray or to worship, which is certainly not an act of disrespect or defiance. In many ways, kneeling is an act of reverence that exemplifies a desire to be respectful, and that is what is lost in what has clearly become an emotional issue. Maybe these young men could have found a better way to peacefully protest, but this is America, and they have a right that is codified in the Constitution to peacefully protest and express their First Amendment rights. Genuflection is far from being disrespectful to the flag or the national anthem. Burning the flag is disrespectful. Spitting on the flag is disrespectful. Stepping on the flag is disrespectful. Wearing the flag as a piece of clothing is disrespectful. Kneeling in peaceful protest and silence is not disrespectful. Those who see the peaceful protest of kneeling as being disrespectful to the flag are not listening to these young men, and have become participants in a cynical and politically motivated move to divide, deflect, and distract Americans from the genuine issues of race, poverty, crime, and lack of education in the black community that need to be addressed. The truth is that black people are some of the most patriotic people in this country. I have lived a long time, and I still have my first time to see a black person burn a flag, spit on a flag, or step on a flag. Bills players take a knee during the playing of the national anthem prior to Sunday's game against the Broncos in Orchard Park. NY Jeffrey T. Barnes app file in this Sunday, September 24, 2017. File photo. Buffalo Bills players take a knee during the playing of the national anthem prior to an NFL football game against the Denver Broncos in Orchard Park, NY. What began more than a year ago with a lone NFL quarterback protesting police brutality against minorities by kneeling silently during the national anthem before games has grown into a roar with hundreds of players sitting, kneeling, locking arms or remaining in locker rooms, their reasons for demonstrating as varied as their methods. AP photo. Jeffrey T. Barnes. File photo. AP is a veteran who served this country honorably, and is proud of that service. I have spoken to a lot of my fellow veterans, and many of them have made it clear to me that they did not fight, bleed, and die for a piece of cloth or a song written by a slave owner and enemy of free speech. This country has a history, and so many of our citizens have no idea what that history is, nor do they care. America's brave soldiers fought for the ideals and ideas of freedom that this country stands for. They fought for their fellow brothers in arms beside them and in front of them. What we are seeing today is faux patriotism, which is as bad as the fake news that some of these same people accuse the media of spreading. Although the protests began as a way to highlight racial inequities in the justice system with respect to black men, they had become less of an issue with the fans until President Trump decided to elevate it again in front of an all-white crowd in Alabama, where he called these young black men sobs to his adoring followers. It was par for the course for this president, who used racism, xenophobia, and religious bigotry to become president, and he continues to do it as president. More from Prentice Smith. Mayor Tyler learned a valuable lesson. There is dignity and value in work. Democrats should follow the money. Russian collusion is the shiny object. It's a classic case of race baiting, which is wrong when Al Sharpton and Rush Limbaugh do it, and it is certainly wrong when this president does it. The language that he used is beneath the dignity of the office he holds, and yet, the leaders of his party refuse to condemn him for his despicable words. All presidents use colorful language, but no president in my lifetime has ever uttered that kind of language from a podium about a group of Americans. He knew what he was doing, and he relishes in his divisiveness. Imagine what Republicans would have said if Barack Obama stood in front of a predominantly black audience and called players of the NHL, a majority of whom are white, a bunch of sobs. Not only would Republicans condemn him, but Democrats would condemn him as well. Mr. Obama called a policeman dumb for arresting a black professor who was entering his own home. Not only did the former president apologize to the officer, he ultimately invited him to White House for the infamous beer summit. The hypocrisy and double standard is glaring and obvious. These young men do not give up their rights when they enter a stadium. They do not give up their rights when they are in the locker room, and they certainly do not give up their rights when they sit or kneel on the football field for the playing of the national anthem. In his final speech, Dr. Martin Luther King said this: "But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for rights. We either have our freedoms or we don't. Kneeling in protest is not disrespectful. It is the American way." And that's my take. smithburn@aol.com. Read or share this story. http www.shreveporttimes.com. Story opinion columnist 201710008. Kneeling protest not disrespectful. It's American way. 733606001.